The first gold coin appeared on a Tuesday morning, nestled in the hollow of the garden wall where Eleanor Ashford kept her spare work gloves. She discovered it while reaching for the worn leather, her fingers brushing against metal that caught the weak autumn sunlight. For a moment, she simply stared at the gleaming sovereign, her breath forming small clouds in the chill air. She worked 3 jobs to feed her siblings. At dawn, she scrubbed floors in the townhouses of Belgrave Square. By mid-morning, she mended linens for Madame Rousseau's dress shop. In the evenings, she served tea in the reading room of the Atherton Hotel. Between these labours, she walked miles through London's streets, her boots wearing thin, her hands perpetually raw from lye soap and cold water. Eleanor turned the coin over in her palm, feeling its substantial weight. A sovereign represented more than a week's combined wages. Her first thought was that someone had dropped it accidentally. Her second was that she should return it. Her third, more practical thought was of her younger sister Margaret's cough that had worsened through the night, and the cost of a proper physician. She slipped the coin into her pocket and tried to ignore the flutter of hope in her chest. Hope was a dangerous luxury for someone in her position. The second coin appeared 3 days later, tucked into the rim of her bonnet where it hung on the servant's peg at the Atherton Hotel. This time, Eleanor's hands trembled as she retrieved it. 2 sovereigns could not be coincidence. Someone was leaving them deliberately, choosing places only she would discover them. She looked around the servants' corridor, but saw only the usual bustle of maids and footmen preparing for the evening service. No one paid her any attention. No one ever did. At 26, Eleanor had perfected the art of invisibility. Plain features, modest dress, quiet demeanor. She moved through the world like a shadow, noticed only when needed, forgotten the moment she left a room. That evening, as she poured tea for the hotel guests in the reading room, Eleanor found herself studying each patron with new intensity. An elderly colonel reading the Times, a merchant's wife writing letters, a young couple whispering over their cups. None of them glanced her way. Then she saw him. He sat in the corner farthest from the fire, despite the October chill that made other guests cluster near the hearth. His clothing marked him as a gentleman of considerable means. A perfectly tailored coat of midnight blue, a waistcoat embroidered with silver thread, a cravat tied with elegant precision. But it was his face that arrested her attention. Beautiful was too simple a word. His features possessed a classical perfection that seemed almost unreal, as if carved from marble by a master sculptor. Pale skin, dark hair, and eyes that even from across the room appeared unusually light, silver or perhaps pale grey. He was watching her. Eleanor's heart gave an uncomfortable lurch. She looked away quickly, focusing on the teapot in her hands, but she could feel his gaze following her movements as she circled the room. When she finally worked up the courage to approach his table, she found her voice had gone unsteady. "More tea, sir?" "Thank you, yes." His voice was cultured, with an accent she could not quite place. Not English, though his command of the language was flawless. Something older, more formal in his phrasing. "You work very hard, Miss Ashford." She nearly dropped the teapot. "You know my name?" "I have made inquiries." He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Please, sit for a moment. You have been on your feet since before dawn." "I cannot, sir. It would not be proper. Propriety is a cage we build for ourselves." His pale eyes held hers with unsettling intensity. "But I understand. Then allow me to be direct. I am Lucian Ashmore. I am new to London, and I find myself in need of assistance managing a household. I would like to offer you a position." Eleanor's fingers welded to the teapot handle. "I am not seeking new employment, Mr. Ashmore. 3 positions to support your siblings, Margaret, Thomas, and young Catherine. Your parents deceased these 5 years. You live in 2 rooms above a bakery in Whitechapel, and you have not purchased a new dress in 3 seasons." He spoke without cruelty, simply stating facts. "I'm offering you a single position that would pay more than your current 3 combined, with suitable lodgings for your entire family." "Why?" The word escaped before she could stop it. "Forgive me, sir, but why would you offer such generosity to a stranger?" "Because I recognize something in you that is exceedingly rare." He leaned forward slightly. "Integrity. You found the coins I left, and your first instinct was to return them. You took them only because your sister's need was greater than your pride. That is the kind of person I wish to employ." So it had been him. Eleanor felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I should have reported them to the hotel management. Most would have simply pocketed them without a second thought. You agonized over the decision. I could see it in your face each time you discovered one." His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "I am not testing you, Miss Ashford. I am offering you a way out of the cage you have built for yourself through duty and sacrifice." "I do not even know you, sir." "Then allow me to remedy that. Come to tea tomorrow afternoon at my residence. Bring your siblings, if it would make you more comfortable. See the position, the lodgings, and then make your decision." He withdrew a card from his pocket and placed it on the table. "Number 47 Grosvenor Square, 3 o'clock. Eleanor stared at the card, her mind racing. Grosvenor Square was one of the most prestigious addresses in London. What kind of man lived in such splendor yet personally recruited a housemaid from a hotel reading room? "I make no promises, Mr. Ashmore. I ask for none. Only that you consider the possibility that you deserve more than exhaustion and worn boots." He stood with fluid grace. "Until tomorrow, Miss Ashford. I look forward to properly making your acquaintance." He left payment for his tea on the table, including a sovereign as a tip, and departed before she could protest. That night, Eleanor lay awake in the narrow bed as she shared with Margaret, listening to her sister's labored breathing. The physician's bill sat on the table, paid with the coins Mr. Ashmore had left. Margaret's fever had broken. The medicine was working. But there would be other illnesses, other emergencies, other impossible choices between food and fuel, between Catherine's shoes and Thomas's school fees. She thought of Lucian Ashmore's pale eyes and the way he had looked at her, truly looked at her, as if she were visible for the first time in years. It should have frightened her. Instead, it had awakened something she had thought long dead. Hope. The next afternoon, Eleanor stood before the imposing door of number 47 Grosvenor Square. Her siblings clustered nervously behind her. She had dressed in her best gown, a grey wool that had been her mother's, carefully altered and maintained. Margaret, now 13, held 8-year-old Catherine's hand. Thomas, at 15, tried to appear worldly and unimpressed, though his eyes widened at the grandeur of the square. The door opened before Eleanor could knock. A butler of advanced years greeted them with a warmth that surprised her. "Miss Ashford, the master is expecting you. Please, come in." The entrance hall took Eleanor's breath away. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, a chandelier that must have held 100 candles. But despite the opulence, something felt odd about the house. All the curtains were drawn, leaving the interior dim even in the middle of the afternoon. The air held a peculiar coolness, as if the fireplaces had not been lit in some time. "Eleanor," Margaret whispered, pressing close. "This is too grand. We do not belong here." "Nonsense." Lucian Ashmore appeared at the top of the staircase, descending with that same fluid grace she had noticed the previous evening. In the dimmer light of his home, his pale skin seemed almost luminous. "You belong wherever you choose to be. Welcome to my home." He greeted each of her siblings by name, asking Thomas about his studies, admiring Catherine's hair ribbon, and inquiring gently after Margaret's health. Within minutes, he had put them at ease in a way Eleanor had not thought possible. He was not condescending or falsely jovial. He simply treated them as if their presence brought him genuine pleasure. "Mrs. Hartwell will show you the family quarters," Lucian said, gesturing to a kind-faced woman who had appeared silently. "They are on the 3rd floor, 4 bedrooms, a sitting room, and a private bath. I believe you will find them comfortable." As the children followed Mrs. Hartwell upstairs, their excited whispers echoing in the stairwell, Lucian turned to Eleanor. "Walk with me in the garden. I wish to discuss the particulars of the position." The garden was as unusual as the house. Beautiful but shadowed, with high walls that blocked most of the sunlight. Autumn roses bloomed in shades of deep crimson and purple. A fountain murmured in the center, its water dark as ink. "The position is simple in its requirements," Lucian said as they walked. "I need someone to manage the household staff, oversee the daily operations, and serve as hostess when I entertain. The previous occupant of the role was my late cousin's wife. She passed 6 months ago, and the house has been in disarray since. I have no experience as a housekeeper, Mr. Ashmore. Certainly not for an establishment of this size. You have managed a household of 4 on wages that would shame most employers. You have negotiated with merchants, balanced impossible budgets, and kept your family fed and clothed through sheer determination. That is precisely the kind of resourcefulness I require." He paused beside the fountain, his reflection strangely absent in the dark water. "I'm not an easy man to work for, Miss Ashford. I keep unusual hours. I entertain guests who might seem strange to conventional society. I value privacy above all else. But I am fair, and I am generous to those who serve me loyally. May I ask why you live alone in such a large house? Surely a gentleman of your standing would have a wife, or at least other family members in residence." A shadow crossed his face. "I had a wife, once, very long ago. She died, and I have not wished to remarry. As for family, I am the last of my line." He met her eyes. "I am lonely, Miss Ashford. I will not pretend otherwise. This house is too large, too quiet, too filled with memories. Your family would bring life to it again. That is worth more to me than gold." Eleanor heard the truth in his words, and it moved her more than she wished to admit. She understood loneliness. She had been lonely since her parents died, surrounded by her siblings, yet isolated by the weight of responsibility she carried. "I will need to think about this, Mr. Ashmore." "Of course. Take as long as you need. He withdrew an envelope from his coat. In the meantime, please accept this. Consider it an advance or a gift if you decide to decline. Your sister needs continued medical care, and your brother's education should not be interrupted. Eleanor opened the envelope and nearly gasped. £50. More money than she had seen in her entire life. I cannot accept this. You can, and you will. His voice was gentle but firm. Pride is another cage, Miss Ashford. Sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing we can do. She looked up at him, this strange, beautiful man who had appeared in her life like something from a fairy tale. Why me? Truly, there must be dozens of more qualified candidates. Because when I look at you, I see someone who has spent her entire life making herself small, invisible, unimportant. And I see the truth beneath that carefully constructed invisibility. You are brave, Eleanor Ashford. You are strong, you are kind, and you deserve to be seen. He reached out as if to touch her hand, then stopped himself. I would very much like to see you, if you will allow it. The way he said her name, with such careful reverence, made her heart beat faster. She should have been frightened. Every instinct should have warned her away from this Puglia man with his shadowed house and his impossible generosity. Instead, she felt drawn to him in a way she could not explain. I will give you my answer in 3 days, she said quietly. I will wait. He smiled, and for a moment, she thought she saw something flash in his eyes. Something not quite human. But then it was gone, and she convinced herself it had been a trick of the light. Over the next 3 days, Eleanor found herself thinking constantly of Lucian Ashmore. She returned to her 3 jobs, but her mind wandered. She caught herself touching the envelope he had given her, now hidden beneath her mattress. She remembered the way he had looked at her in the garden, as if she were something precious and rare. On the 3rd evening, as she served tea in the Atherton Hotel reading room, she saw him again. He sat in his usual corner, reading a book that looked centuries old. When she approached, he looked up with an expression of such wicked hope that it stole her breath. I accept your offer, Mr. Ashmore. His smile transformed his face. You have made me very happy, Miss Ashford. When can you begin? I must give notice to my current employers. 2 weeks. Of course. I will have the family quarters prepared. He closed his book. Eleanor. May I call you Eleanor? Yes, Eleanor. I want you to understand something. This is not merely an employment arrangement. I am inviting you and your family into my life, into my home. That is not something I do lightly. He hesitated, seeming to choose his words carefully. There are things about me that you do not yet know, things that might frighten you. But I promise you this, I will never harm you or your family. You will always be safe under my protection. What things? Eleanor asked, though part of her was not sure she wanted to know. In time, when you are ready to hear them. He stood. For now, know that you have given me something I thought lost forever. Hope for companionship. Hope for connection. Hope that I might not spend eternity alone. Eternity. An odd choice of word. But before Eleanor could question it, he had bid her good night and departed, leaving her with a heart full of questions and a strange, growing certainty that her life had just changed in ways she could not yet comprehend. The move happened on a grey November morning. Eleanor and her siblings arrived at Grosvenor Square with their few possessions packed in 2 trunks. Mrs. Hartwell greeted them warmly, and the butler, Mr. Pemberton, helped Thomas carry the trunks upstairs. The family quarters exceeded Eleanor's wildest expectations. The rooms were beautifully furnished, with thick carpets, velvet curtains, and furniture that gleamed with polish. Each child had their own bedroom. Eleanor's room connected to a small sitting area with a writing desk and bookshelves, already filled with volumes. "The master thought you might enjoy reading," Mrs. Hartwell explained. "He has quite the library. You are welcome to borrow anything you wish." Margaret spun in circles in her new room, laughing with delight. Catherine bounced on her bed, marveling at the softness of the mattress. Even Thomas, trying to maintain his adolescent dignity, could not hide his pleasure at having a space of his own. Eleanor found herself blinking back tears. For 5 years, she had sacrificed everything to keep her family together. She had gone without food so they could eat. She had worn threadbare clothes so they could have decent shoes. She had worked herself to exhaustion so they could have a roof over their heads. And now, through the inexplicable generosity of a man she barely knew, they had a home that felt like something from a dream. "Miss Ashford?" Mrs. Hartwell touched her arm gently. "The master would like to see you in his study when you are settled." Eleanor found Lucien in a room lined with books from floor to ceiling. Heavy curtains blocked the afternoon light, and candles provided the only illumination. He stood before the fireplace, staring into flames that cast dancing shadows across his pale features. "Thank you for coming," he said, without turning. "I wanted to discuss your duties. But first, I must confess something. I have not been entirely honest with you." Eleanor's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "I did not hire you simply because I needed a housekeeper." He turned to face her, and in the firelight, his eyes seemed to glow with an inner luminescence. "I hired you because from the moment I first saw you, I was drawn to you in a way I have not experienced in centuries. I wanted you near me. I wanted to see you smile. I wanted to ease your burdens and watch you flourish without the weight of constant struggle crushing your spirit." "Centuries?" Eleanor whispered. "I'm not what I appear to be." He moved closer, and she noticed for the first time that he made no sound when he walked. "I am old, Eleanor. Older than this house. Older than this city. I have walked the earth for more than 500 years, and in all that time I have never met anyone who affected me as you do." "I do not understand." "I am vampire." He said it simply, without drama. "I do not age. I do not die. I sustain myself on blood, though I have not harmed a human in 3 centuries. I live in shadow because sunlight weakens me. I exist on the margins of society, watching humanity from a distance, never truly part of it." Eleanor should have run, should have gathered her siblings and fled this house of shadows and impossible confessions. Instead, she found herself asking, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I cannot bear to build our relationship on deception. Because you deserve the truth. And because I am hoping, perhaps foolishly, that you might be able to accept what I am, old bomb on." He stopped an arm's length away. "I will not force you to stay. If you wish to leave, I will provide you with enough money to establish your family elsewhere." You will never want for anything, but I am asking you to consider staying, to give me a chance to prove that what I am does not define who I am." Eleanor studied him in the candlelight. She thought of the coins left where only she would find them, the way he had treated her siblings with genuine kindness, the loneliness in his voice when he spoke of his empty house, the careful distance he maintained, as if afraid his very presence might harm her. "You drink blood?" she asked quietly. "Animal blood primarily. When I must feed from humans, I have willing donors who understand my nature. I take only what I need, and I ensure they are well compensated and cared for afterward. I am not a monster, Eleanor, though I was born from monstrous circumstances." "Can you die?" "By certain means. Silver, fire, beheading. But not by age or illness. And you have lived for 500 years. 543 to be precise. I was transformed during the Italian Renaissance. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched the world change in ways that would astound you." His voice softened. "And in all that time I have never felt as alive as I do when I am near you." Eleanor's mind reeled. Vampires. She had heard the stories, of course. Gothic tales meant to frighten children. But standing before Lucien, seeing the truth in his strange, beautiful eyes, she could not deny what he was telling her. "I need time to think," she managed. "Of course. Take all the time you need. Your position here is secure, regardless of your decision about me." He stepped back, giving her space. "I ask only that you not fear me. I would rather die than cause you harm." That night, Eleanor lay awake in her comfortable new bed, trying to reconcile the impossible truth. Lucien Ashmore was a vampire, a creature from legend, living in the heart of London, offering her family a home and offering her what? His heart? His eternal devotion? The thought was absurd, and yet she remembered the way he had looked at her in the garden, the careful reverence in his voice when he spoke her name, the loneliness that echoed through his words like a wound that had never healed. He was not a monster. He was a man, or had been once, who had endured centuries of isolation and was reaching out for connection with a desperate, aching hope. Over the following weeks, Eleanor fell into the rhythm of managing Lucien's household. She discovered that he employed a small staff of servants who all knew his true nature and served him with unwavering loyalty. Mrs. Hartwell had been with him for 40 years. Mr. Pemberton for 30. They spoke of him with genuine affection, describing his kindness, his generosity, his melancholy. "He has been alone too long," Mrs. Hartwell confided one afternoon as they reviewed the household accounts. "He needs someone to remind him what it means to live, not merely exist." Eleanor saw Lucien primarily in the evenings. He kept to his private chambers during the day, emerging only after sunset. They took to having tea together in his study, discussing books, music, art. He was the most educated person she had ever met, able to speak with authority on subjects ranging from ancient philosophy to modern science. But what struck her most was his curiosity about her life, her thoughts, her dreams. "What would you have done if circumstances had been different?" he asked one evening. "If your parents had lived, if you had not needed to work 3 jobs?" "I would have liked to study, Eleanor admitted. History, perhaps, or literature. I have always loved stories. Then we shall make that happen. My library is yours. I will teach you myself if you wish. Languages, history, art. I have lived through much of what is written in those books. I can show you the truth behind the tales. And he did. Their evening conversations evolved into proper lessons. He taught her Italian, speaking of the Florence of his youth with such vivid detail that she could almost see the sun-drenched piazzas and smell the paint in Leonardo's workshop. He taught her French, recounting his years at Versailles with wry humor. He taught her about art, about music, about the sweep of history, as seen through the eyes of someone who had witnessed it firsthand. Eleanor found herself falling under his spell. Not through any supernatural influence. He assured her he possessed no such power, but through the simple magic of being truly seen, truly valued, truly cherished. He looked at her as if she were the most fascinating person in the world. He listened to her opinions as if they mattered. He made her feel, for the first time in her life, that she was enough exactly as she was. Her siblings flourished as well. Thomas enrolled in a proper school. Margaret's health improved dramatically with good food and warm lodgings. Catherine blossomed under the attention of Mrs. Hartwell, who doted on her like a grandmother. The house filled with laughter and life in a way Lucian said it had not known in decades. "You have given me such a gift," he told Eleanor one December evening as they sat before the fire in his study. Snow fell outside the curtained windows, but the room was warm and comfortable. "I had forgotten what it was to have a home rather than simply a house." "You have given us far more," Eleanor replied. "You have given us security, comfort, hope. You have given me the chance to be something more than just a drudge working herself to death. You were always more than that. I simply helped you see it." He reached across the space between their chairs and took her hand. His skin was cool, but not unpleasantly so. "Eleanor, I must ask you something. These past weeks, have you grown comfortable with what I am? Can you accept my nature?" "I can," she said honestly. "You are not what I expected when you first told me. You are kind, gentle, thoughtful. Your nature may be unusual, but your character is exemplary." "Then I must ask something more difficult." He tightened his grip on her hand. "I am falling in love with you. Perhaps I have been since that first evening in the hotel reading room. I know the obstacles are insurmountable. I know I can offer you no normal life, no children, no place in conventional society. But I can offer you my heart, my devotion, my protection for as long as you live. And I can promise you that every day of your life will be filled with beauty, learning, adventure, and love beyond measure." Eleanor's pulse crashed through her collarbone. "You are asking me to be your wife? I am asking you to be my companion, my partner, my love. Wife, if you wish to formalize it before society. But more than that, I am asking you to share my life, such as it is. To walk beside me through the years you have remaining. To let me love you as I have never loved anyone." His pale eyes searched hers. "I know I am asking for something extraordinary. I know the sacrifice would be yours, not mine. But Eleanor, I have lived for more than 5 centuries, and I have never wanted anything as much as I want to spend your lifetime loving you." She should have said no, should have recognized the impossibility of what he offered. But as she looked at him, this beautiful, lonely, ancient being who had chosen her above all others, she felt something shift in her chest. She had spent her entire life being practical, responsible, self-sacrificing. Perhaps it was time to be brave instead. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. I tried not to. I told myself it was impossible, that we were too different, that it could never work. But I cannot help it. When I am with you, I feel alive in a way I never have before. You make me feel seen, valued, cherished. You make me feel like I matter. You do matter. You matter more than you could possibly know. He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles with such tenderness that tears sprang to her eyes. "Say you will be mine, Eleanor. Say you will let me love you." "I will," she breathed. "For however long we have, I will be yours." He pulled her from her chair and into his arms, holding her with a careful strength that reminded her of what he was. But she felt no fear, only a sense of rightness, of coming home to a place she had never known she was seeking. "I will make you happy," he promised against her hair. "I will spend every night of your life ensuring you never regret this choice." "I could never regret choosing love," Eleanor said. "I have spent too long choosing duty instead." They were married in the spring, in a small ceremony in the garden where he had first asked her to see him truly. The guests were few, her siblings, the household staff, and a handful of Lucian's oldest friends, who were also vampires, and who welcomed Eleanor into their unusual society with warmth and acceptance. Margaret served as Eleanor's attendant, weeping happy tears as she helped her sister dress in a gown of ivory silk that Lucian had commissioned from the finest modiste in London. Thomas walked Eleanor down the makeshift aisle, his chest puffed with pride. Catherine scattered rose petals, giggling with delight. Lucian stood beneath an arch woven with white roses, looking more handsome than any man had a right to be. When Eleanor reached him, he took her hands and spoke his vows with such fervent sincerity that there was not a dry eye in the garden. "I vow to love you for all the days of your life," he said. "To honor you, cherish you, protect you. To be your partner in all things. To ensure that you never again know want or hardship. To make you laugh, to challenge your mind, to support your dreams. You have brought light into my darkness, Eleanor. You have reminded me what it means to truly live. I am yours now and always." Eleanor spoke her own vows with a steady voice, promising to stand beside him, to love him without reservation, to share his unusual life with courage and grace. When the officiant, an elderly vampire who had known Lucian for 3 centuries, pronounced them bound, Lucian kissed her with such tender passion that the world seemed to fall away. That night, as they stood together in the garden under the stars, Eleanor marveled at the strange path her life had taken. She had been invisible, exhausted, slowly dying under the weight of responsibility. And then a mysterious stranger had left gold coins where only she would find them, and everything had changed. "What are you thinking?" Lucien asked, his arm around her waist. "That I am the luckiest woman in London, perhaps in all of England." "I am the lucky one. You could have chosen safety, normalcy, a conventional life. Instead, you chose me. You chose love over fear, possibility over limitation." He turned her to face him. "I have one more gift for you, if you will accept it." "You have already given me everything, Cassie." "Not everything, not yet." He withdrew a small vial from his pocket. In the moonlight, Its contents gleamed dark red. "This is my blood. If you drink it, you will gain some of my strength, my longevity. You will not become vampire. That requires a more complex transformation. But you will age more slowly. You will be harder to harm. You will have decades instead of years, perhaps a century, if fortune favors us." Eleanor stared at the vial. "You are offering me more time." "I am offering you a choice. You can live a normal human lifespan, and I will treasure every moment we have. Or you can drink this, and we can have so much more. I will not pressure you. I will love you regardless. But I wanted you to know the option exists." Eleanor thought of all the years stretching ahead. Years of learning, growing, loving. Years of walking beside this extraordinary being who had chosen her. Years of being truly alive instead of merely surviving. She took the vial from his hand. "Will it hurt?" "No. You will feel warm, then stronger. The changes will be gradual." "Then I accept. I want every moment with you that I can have." She uncorked the vial and drank. The blood tasted strange, metallic, but also sweet, with an undercurrent of something ancient and powerful. Warmth spread through her body, and she felt a surge of vitality, unlike anything she had experienced before. Lucien caught her as her knees weakened, holding her steady until the sensation passed. When she looked up at him, the world seemed sharper, clearer. She could hear his heart beating, slow but steady. She could see the minute details of his face, the silver flecks in his eyes, the way his lips curved into a smile. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Alive," she breathed. "Truly alive. Good. That is all I have ever wanted for you." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Welcome to our life together, my love. Welcome to eternity." Years passed. Eleanor's siblings grew up and made their own lives, always welcomed in the Grosvenor Square house, always supported by their sister and her unusual husband. Margaret married a kind doctor and had children of her own. Thomas became a solicitor. Catherine, inspired by Eleanor's transformation, became a teacher. Eleanor herself flourished beyond her wildest dreams. She studied languages, history, art. She traveled with Lucien to the places he had lived, seeing the world through his ancient eyes while experiencing it with her own fresh wonder. She became his true partner, managing not just his household, but his business affairs, his social obligations, his complex existence between the human and vampire worlds. She aged, but slowly. When she reached 40, she looked 30. When she reached 50, she looked 35. The vampire blood in her veins kept her strong, vital, youthful. And every night, Lucien loved her with the same fervent devotion he had shown on their wedding day. On their 25th anniversary, they stood once again in the garden where they had married. Eleanor was 51, but could have passed for 40. Lucien looked exactly as he had the day she met him. Eternally beautiful, eternally unchanged. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, pulling her close. "Choosing this strange life with me?" "Never. Not for a single moment." She rested her head against his chest. "You saved me, Lucien. Not just from poverty and hardship, but from invisibility. You saw me when no one else did. You loved me when I did not know how to love myself. You gave me a life beyond my wildest imaginings. You saved me too, he murmured. From loneliness, from the slow death of existing without truly living. You reminded me what it means to hope, to dream, to love. He tilted her face up to his. I have lived for nearly 6 centuries, Eleanor, and the best years of my existence have been these past 25. With you beside me. She kissed him, tasting the promise of all the years still to come. Decades stretched ahead of them, decades of love, learning, adventure. She would age eventually, would one day leave him, but not for a long time yet. And until that day came, she would live fully, love completely, and never again make herself small or invisible. She had worked 3 jobs to feed her siblings. He had left gold coins where only she would find them. And from that simple act of kindness, a love had grown that transcended the boundaries between human and vampire, between mortal and immortal, between what was and what could be. In the end, Eleanor had not just found security or comfort. She had found herself, reflected in the eyes of someone who loved her exactly as she was, and who had given her the courage to become everything she was meant to be.